Hello, hello, hello. Hey, out there in live streaming land and podcast land. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. Thanks for joining us to discuss the breaking Kentucky political news of the week with a special message to MSNBC's bookers. You have to wait for that. And then, we always say that we have exciting interviews, and usually we're right. But tonight it's to the moon. We are speaking with Kentucky's poet laureate, author of Lark Ascending and Appalachian Ambassador, Silas House. Woo! We are pumped. And finally, we'll close out with an important call to action. Okay, but first, are you, yes, you, ready to help turn Kentucky purple? If you've hunted through literally billions of websites, podcasts, and YouTube videos to find us, I think it's safe to say that you agree with us and you think that things would be better in Frankfurt and in DC and wherever politicians come together to decide how to spend our tax dollars. Now, despite the challenges facing Kentucky, we've had some highlights. We rejected Amendment 2 to keep abortion protections in our state constitution. We re-elected Andy, so good work us. But it is clear there's still lots more work to do in our state to win better electoral outcomes for the Commonwealth, unless you want your tax dollars siphoned away from public schools and sent to unaccountable religious schools or just maybe kicked back to rich folks. Yeah, I didn't think so. Between now and this November, that's 132 days from now, I should have fact-checked that, we'll be working for better electoral outcomes in Kentucky, and we hope that you will support us, Progress Kentucky, in our campaign for a more compassionate Commonwealth. Make a contribution, hey, right now via our secure online website, Act Blue, to help turn Kentucky purple. $5, $50, what the heck? $500, you just won the lottery. It all adds up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now it's time to check in with our co-hosts. And you out there in live streaming and podcasting land, let us know who you are, where you are, and what you are protesting today. We mean you too. And let's feel free to put it in the chat when we are sharing ours too. So this is Nate Orshan sitting in for Aaron, coming live and direct from lovely South Frankfurt, just a stone's throw from the governor's mansion. My sign says, "Be Pride every day." And now let's call in Nema Porter. Come on down.
Hey, Nate. Hey, Chris. How are you all? Hey, Annabel. My protest sign today says democracy dies without solid, free local journalism. And when I mean free, I don't mean free that you don't have to pay for it. I mean free that they are free to actually report the facts, the news, the truth. I've been noticing this, y'all, more and more as that, we fought this in Frankfurt. Which was the open records stuff that they're trying to mess with. And I'm telling you, they've already whittled it so much that a lot of people just don't think they have to follow the rules. And, it's very, very troubling. And the sad thing is I just don't think that we have the reporters anymore that can cover the load of what they're all covering, or it's not clickbait enough, or, I'm not sure, but I am really, really concerned for the state of our press here, especially in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, I second that, certainly. I mean, Kit gets on my case about how many news sources we subscribe to, a couple national, a few national, and a few local. But I believe exactly what you're saying. Democracy dies without strong local journalism. So thank you for that protest sign. And lastly, but not leastly, let's call in Chris Breeze.
Hey, everybody. And Nema, I absolutely agree. I actually have a journalist friend here locally who is moving far away because of some mistreatment she's had at her current position. So I'll be sad to see her go, but happy that she is getting another journalist job somewhere that sounds like will actually appreciate her and her hard work. So I'm here in Berea, Kentucky, and back from a faraway land. And What else? Oh, my protest sign. Represent us and not corporations. Down with lobbyists. So yeah, that's on my mind. Just the continuous dealing with the oligarchy and how our government, certainly at the federal level and increasingly at the state level, and hopefully not nearly as much at the local level, but some of that trickles down, that we're not being fairly represented.
Yeah, that sad day for democracy, the day that the Supreme Court decided Citizens United, and I forget which one of them said that corporations are basically people, but that it couldn't have been a worse decision. So that affects all of that. Well, thank you.
Citizens United, yeah.
Citizens United, yeah. So thanks, Chris. Thanks, Nema. And now it is time for news of the week. Yes, my own echo machine here. So the first story, we are always proud of friends of our show, the folks who prioritize grassroots organizing and power building in Kentucky, who come on this show, Kernels of Truth, and help us do the work. Well, one of our recent guests have absolutely entered the big leagues, and we couldn't be more thrilled, and for her and for the movement. So as you might have heard, this week marked the 2-year anniversary of the Dobbs decision, when the anti-abortion forces of our nation got what they'd worked for a generation to accomplish, thanks to now convicted felon Donald Trump and 3 convincing legal liars he appointed to the Supreme Court, and aided and abetted by our very own SCOTUS seat stealer Mitch McConnell. So Roe fell due to the Dobbs decision, and states were allowed to outlaw abortion. And it didn't take Republican state legislatures such as Kentucky very long to act, along with 20 other states total, and make abortion illegal or otherwise inaccessible, despite being a medically necessary procedure for a wide range of problem pregnancies. That 2-year anniversary has been an important date to organize around, and we saw some great efforts by the Revolution here in Frankfurt and some other national and regional efforts. So what we're talking about now is our friend of the show, Hadley Duval, who was on Kernels of Truth earlier this month. She just sat down with Micah B on Morning Joe, along with the Veep, Kamala Harris. I know Kimberly Cecil Jones is very sad she can't be here tonight for this news, because she would be talking about her soror, which, sorority thing. It was a phenomenal interview. We'll put a link to it in the chat and the show notes. Hadley also teamed up with Governor Beshear at an event in Nashville, making it clear how important November is all across the country to make strides to protect women's health care options. We have another link that we'll drop in the show notes. And Governor Andy Beshear continued his barnstorming out of the state, appearing on a national governors meeting in Minnesota as well with a similar message. Hadley was not there, but our governor's working it. Oh, okay. While we're talking about great media appearances by recent guests, last week's amazing guest, Ira Shapiro, who's the author of The Betrayal, How Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans Abandoned America, a great interview if you missed it, historically proves that Mitch is the absolute worst Senate leader in the history of our great nation. So Mr. Shapiro was on Lawrence O'Donnell after he appeared here on Kernels of Truth. And I couldn't help but notice it was the exact same, setup. He had that nice bookshelf and everything. So I felt like a personal connection there. So since you are clearly watching MSNBC bookers, may we humbly suggest that you book Nema Porter to discuss the State of the Union organizing in right-to-work states. You will not be sorry. And that's my story. What do you think, my wonderful co-hosts?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I don't know. I've been thinking about Hadley and I think everybody, thinks about Hadley every so often when this topic comes up in Kentucky, especially because it's just such a powerful story. But for the most part, I'm going to tell you, I'm really proud of Hadley. And because it's not easy to put yourself out there, let alone put yourself out there on this kind of a topic. And so many women, it's such a painful and personal issue that so many women just don't talk about it, which really creates more of a stigma and a shame that's attached to our rights as women to have an abortion or to choose how to take care of our children or any of these things. So I'm really proud. I hope other people see her, and in whatever they're passionate about or whatever they feel like they are led to talk about and to advocate for, I hope that her story and her stepping out there at such a young age, I hope that other people are inspired by her. I totally am inspired by her. So that's what I would say about Hadley. I just think that it's amazing, what she's done and the message. I mean, she's been one of the main reasons I think that we have, a constitutional right to an abortion so far here in Kentucky.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. You can't get braver than Hadley Duval. It's just, she's a hero for me too. Chris, what do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I echo what you two have said, like the bravery that she has of stepping out and talking about this tough subject. And I mean, it's now gone all the way to the top. Bashir highlighted it, and now it's even going further than that. And, hats off to her for coming out and really being a face to this issue that we unfortunately have since the Dobbs decision. I totally think that she is a big reason why, that we got we got the outcome that we needed on Amendment 2, and that Bashir is back in office. So, yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, dodged a bullet with that one. Tell you what. Well, hey, I think it's time to move on to the second story, and that would be you, Chris.
Yes. So I think I've created a theme here that every time I do a news story, it's typically something more on the positive note. Just that's where I like to spend most of my headspace. There's a lot of problems, and if we can keep thinking about the positive that we have already, and then lead with that love that we have to make the changes that we need. I think that is the best space to be in. So one of the really good story to highlight here is about the Appalachian Service Project. So there's a story by Jenny Glendenning with the Kentucky Lantern that was talking about all the work that they have done in Eastern Kentucky since the big flood 2 years ago, to go and rebuild houses and repair houses, and they have completed so far in the 2 years 24 homes and fully repaired 40 more. And a lot of the homes that are being built and repaired are in Breathitt, Harlan, Knott, Leslie, Magoffin, and Perry counties. So really Eastern Kentucky counties. And it has 12. Currently, they have 12 homes under construction and are repairing 24 more. They say if they're able to keep on this kind of pace, they'll complete 45 new homes and fully repair 65 homes by the end of the year, which is amazing. That flood, the major flood that we had 2 years ago, really wiped out a lot of people's homes and destroyed livelihoods. And seeing that Appalachian Service Project is stepping in and doing this, and they're doing it through grants that are federal and state grants that are available, and through a lot of volunteer help. They've got 400 plus volunteers, and that's also coming from West Virginia, Kentucky, Virginia, a lot of people helping out. And they say that they are dedicated to keeping this up and working on this until the job is done. And so, like, if you know of a job that they need to do, that they have an application process still up, and it's handled by Haley Peck. So that's the person over disaster recovery office and grant compliance coordinator for Kentucky. So they're also working with other states like West Virginia and Virginia. So, definitely reach out. And also, if you have the time and skills, go volunteer and help build other people's houses too. So, like they're constantly looking around trying to purchase land that's not in the flood zone, so they can help build some of these houses. And, considering the magnitude of floods currently that are happening to Eastern Kentucky, it's pretty hard to, it's increasingly getting harder to find land out of a floodplain. And being from Martin County, growing up in Martin County, there was certainly some major floods that I saw and experienced growing up there. And, the floods over the years just kept getting closer and closer and closer to the house that I grew up in. Fortunately, I don't think any has gotten into the house that I grew up in, but none of my family lives there anymore, so I'm not sure if the latest one did or not. But anyway, highlighting the good news that this wonderful work is being done, and thanks to the Appalachian Service Project and all the volunteers and people that are working on that. And do you know anyone affected by the flood or being improved by the Appalachian Service Project? You all?
I mean, obviously, I know a bunch of people that are affected by it. I'm from Whitesburg, originally in Letcher County, and it absolutely devastated my hometown. I've never seen rain like that get that high in Whitesburg. Never, not one time. And so it was terrifying. I was woken up that morning by a message from the principal at the time at Letcher County Central, asking if I could find a way to get some John boats to Whitesburg. And so that's how far reaching they were reaching out to people. Hey, can you help? It was terrifying. I'm so glad that we've not just forgotten, that this is still going on. You were talking, Chris, about the cost. Like, it's hard to find land, without it being in the floodplain. And if we're being completely honest, the reason why is because that land is not owned by the people that live there. That land is owned by corporations in New York City and other places that then sell the mineral rights to that land or lease it. And everybody below where those mineral rights are, or the floodplain, just piss on them. That's basically this true story. It's the reality that people don't want to see. And, I've said my daddy was a coal miner, and, I know exactly what coal has done for the region, for my family. And when I say that, I mean, I also know what it's done for my family. My dad has black lung. He broke his back whenever he was a young man in his 30s. And he's been just absolutely almost debilitated since. So King Coal always gets what King Coal wants. And unfortunately, it's those mountains. And I just don't see how folks can afford to live there. Electricity's high as a cat's back. And they're going to have to raise property taxes there. And I just don't see how it's going to happen, Chris. And I know that this is an uplifting story, but we got to get in there and get some relief as far as jobs, not just call centers, real substantial jobs, not these crypto mines or whatever. Jobs with dignity that provide that dignity as well. And I don't know. It's a long road ahead for my home area and yours.
Yeah. Same. And, I think we have very similar or somewhat similar backgrounds. Like, my dad and grandpa were also coal miners, and lots of sad stories there related to their health. The land that that's being purchased by Big Coal, and then it kind of just stays there. They strip all the minerals out and then just kind of leave it, and then the coal mines will dump sediment into the creeks and whatnot, which raises the
you know all about that sludge. Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
It's and you know it's my mom said it's always been part of the deal that you make with King Coal. And that was after my dad was diagnosed with black lung. And, you know, it was just devastating. You know, it's like you think that you're out. You think that you're okay, that you made it without getting black lung. And then in your 70s, they tell you, well, the reason you're coughing so much is because you have black lung. My dad's not been in the coal mines in 35 years, at least.
Wow.
You know, so, you know, King Coal gets what King Coal wants.
Yeah.
And it's never been an even trade-off, brother. Never.
No, especially not with them paying with script early on and all that craziness.
Yep. Never been an even trade. Yep.
No.
King Coal.
So anyway, sorry about that, bringing down the room, but you know, I gotta be real, and I gotta say we gotta get in there, and we gotta, you know, really be creative. You know, I've always said that I would legalize marijuana at every level, and plant marijuana on every abandoned strip site in Eastern Kentucky. And because first of all, it's already there. We all know it. Second of all, then we can tax it and regulate it. And third, we can put people to work. And listen, we can make them good union paying jobs in that industry and really revitalize that area if we do it right. And that is what I think should happen. But we'll see. So let me go. I got my stories next, right? Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So did you know that the first state to require the 10 Commandments to be posted on classroom walls was Kentucky? Despite all the attention and outrage about Louisiana's legislature and crackpot governor conspiring to breach the wall between church and state, they are not the original gangsters of this idea. That goes back to a 1978 law passed by the GA and apparently passed by the General Assembly and apparently signed into law by recently deceased Governor Julian Carroll, but overturned by SCOTUS. That would be the Supreme Court. In the 80s, Stone versus Graham decision. Of course, that was the court that also didn't overturn Roe v. Wade. What do you guys think? Will Trump and the whole conservative court and Mitch's conservative court allow this clear violation of church and state? What do you guys think?
I don't know. After you, Chris.
It's really hard to tell for me. I mean, they bend over backwards to just service whatever they want, regardless of whether it's, you know, what they say of like trying to stick to traditional ideologies of what the founding fathers want, or, you know, just servicing themselves. So it you know, we've seen them bend their logic in any way that they want. So it's really hard to tell exactly how far they're willing to go. Occasionally they actually have a ruling that goes in a way that I would want or expect to go in a more positive way, and then we get stuff like the Dobbs decision. So you know, it's really hard to tell. I'm hopeful that that mandating the 10 Commandments will not be allowed, or if they're going to mandate it, that it also has to be mandated alongside a plethora of other religions, because we cannot be bound and servicing to just one. That's, you know, that is a clear violation of the Constitution. So, you know, if they want to mandate the 10 Commandments and, you know, and many other ideologies alongside of it, say the top 15 religions, okay, you know, but just servicing to one, that's an issue.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if you all have ever seen that documentary, Hail Satan, I think is what it's called. but it's basically the Satanic Temple's fight. I think it was Alabama or Arkansas over the display of the 10 Commandments on the grounds of the state capitol. If you all haven't seen it, check it out. But this is one of those things where the sword cuts both ways, right? You can't have it one way and not the other. And nobody ever thinks about the other when they're all hot and bothered over the 10 Commandments in the schools. You know, they never think about, oh, is this opening the door to who knows what, you know? Right. And so I think that's what's going to be really interesting. Nate, what do you think?
Oh, yeah. I for one, I'm looking forward to seeing these satanic commandments plastered on schoolrooms all across the country.
Yep. Absolutely. Bathsheba or whatever the name of the thing with the big horns. I don't know what the name is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, like, yeah. I don't think it's Bathsheba. I think that's in the Bible. But carry on. Yeah.
Right. What's good for the religious goose is good for the religious gander, you know. Right. Well, hey, friends, I think it's time for us to pivot. And we have a very special guest tonight. If you have not been paying attention, as they say, our next guest needs no introduction. Since the last time we caught up with Silas House here on Kernels of Truth 3 years back, cue the bullet points. He published Lark Ascending, which won the 2023 Southern Book Prize and the 2023 Nautilus Book Award, and was also a book list editor's choice. And we believe, and it's been on paperback since last fall. So go out and get it at your favorite local independent bookstore. He was awarded Lambda Literary's Jim Duggan's PhD Outstanding Mid-Career Novelists Prize. That's a big one. Lexington proclaimed May 25th, henceforward, to be Silas House Day. He worked with his husband, writer Jason Kyle Howard, to write and give creative direction to the video for Tyler Childers' In Your Love, which is a beautiful ballad, almost an anthem, that made history as the video portrayed a love story between two rural Kentucky men. And that video was nominated for a Grammy, by the way. And what else? I think I'm forgetting something. Oh, yes! He was named Kentucky Poet Laureate last year. And in that capacity was asked to write and then read a poem, Those Who Carry Us, for Governor Andy Beshear's second inauguration. And I want to tell you, when he starts listing off the names of Kentucky communities, I was starting to tear up. It was a wonderful moment. So Silas House, welcome. We are so grateful that you could make a little time to join us on Kernels of Truth. Wait, are we supposed to call you by that title now? Are you Poet Laureate House?
You can call me whatever you want to.
All right. Well, that's a mouthful, so maybe we'll stick with Silas.
Yeah, it's like darling.
Darling.
I love that.
All right, darling.
You don't have to call me darling.
Hey, how's your Pride this month?
It's been great so far. We're having Pride here in Lexington this Saturday, so I'm looking forward to that. If anybody out there is going, I'll be working the Faulkner Morgan booth, so stop by and see me.
Oh my goodness! All right, that'll be something to do for sure. So you are Kentucky born and bred, and easily one of our loudest advocates. But you know that love is not always reciprocated. Our extremist conservative supermajority in the General Assembly consistently works on the wrong side of so many issues that you care about and advocate for, such as addressing global warming, reproductive rights, and of course, LGBTQ freedom. Have you ever entertained the thought of moving to a state with less outright antagonism?
Well, that's a great question. That's a hard question. I guess I don't think so much about leaving Kentucky as I think about leaving the United States sometimes. You know, when I think about what I'm really afraid of. I don't know. Anytime that I have thought that, I've immediately thought about how much I love Kentucky and how much I believe in Kentuckians and how the love outweighs the bad parts, you know? So if I have thought of that, it's been a pretty quick thought before I thought, no, I can't leave. I'll stay and fight, you know?
Yeah. Stand your ground. Chris, do you have a question?
Yeah, that's I think the same thing sometimes. And I think that I guess I'm just too mean or ornery to leave Kentucky.
Right.
And the other part of me thinks this is my state too. Like this, and I have coal dust in my veins, and so why should I leave? Right? I'm like you. I'll just stay and fight it. I mean, it's tough, right? But
every time I feel really weary and down, I remember how good it feels to fight back. And I was raised by people who fought back, who were defiant people, and so yeah, I think it's important to not be silenced.
Yeah, definitely. Although occasionally I do daydream about having a cacao farm in like Costa Rica or somewhere. But so I have a question for you, and thanks for coming on. I love that you're all that you've done, and that you're willing to take time out to come and hang out with us. And I'm pretty sure that you've traveled a fair amount, at least in the States and abroad too. And I'm curious of what are some lessons that you've learned about how other people live, or even the policies that their governments enact. And what could you, from those lessons, what could you bring back here to Kentucky that would better our quality of life if we could get those things passed?
That's a great question. I think when I travel abroad, the main thing that strikes me is how fresh the food is, and how the people, demand that their food be cleaner than we demand for it to be here in the United States. I just think that, one of the things I talk about when people ask me what gives me hope in Kentucky is the foodways movement. And I think, we in Kentucky could be a real leader in that, and changing the way people think about our food and how it needs to be more local. And,
did you know my wife was a farmer? I mean, I feel like I'm getting like you. To me, it was like, what's a great pinpoint answer for Chris?
Yeah,
sorry.
That's one of the main things I think about when I'm traveling, especially when you're in Ireland or England or Scotland or France, or the food is just so much different, and the people demand that it be fresh, and they demand that it be more localized, and they demand that it be freer of toxins, like high fructose, is something that is eliminated in a lot of those countries that you have to work to avoid here. So I wish that we could change the way we think about food. And I think a lot of Kentuckians, grassroots organizations and farmers and people I know in Kentucky are doing that work already. And I'm so proud of the work that they're doing on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point that I don't hear enough from people about our food, and trying to make it more local and more, organic, I should say. But even that term by the USDA, I don't think is as strict as it should be. But my wife turned our entire yard into an urban farm. Like we live in the city of Berea, and it's just all farm.
That's great.
Yeah, and so she sells at the farmers market and all that stuff. But yeah, the food, great answer.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Margaret Wrinkle, is a wonderful writer. She writes for the New York Times, but she lives in Tennessee, and she's a big proponent of wild yards. So it's, the idea of either using your yard to grow food or to let it grow more wild. And so I'm lucky that I can let a lot of my yard grow wilder. And it just, my parents would come here sometimes, and they always comment on how many more birds we have and how many more lightning bugs and, insect sounds and things like that. And so I just feel fortunate that we're able to do that. Not everybody is able to do that. And so I'm really glad that I just get so much pleasure out of it, and it's just good for the environment in so many ways.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it helps with bees. It helps with a lot of biodiversity, which we need much more of. So next question. Your most recent book, Lark Ascending, is set in a future that has been ravaged by climate change impacts and survivors of horrible fires are trying to stay safe and rebuild community. It's a powerful story. Now it's in paperback, and with wonderful characters, one of whom is Beagle, named Samus, and some of the book is told from its perspective. Did the need to instill in your reader its let's call it preemptive empathy for the future victims of global warming? Did that need to play a part of the decision to include Seamus as a character, as though to say, hey, this hellscape is we're creating will make pets suffer as much as humans?
I think the main thing I was thinking there is, I want people to think about the fact that the poorest people, the most disenfranchised people, are going to be the people most impacted by climate change catastrophe. They're going to, they're going to be the climate refugees, the working people, the ultra wealthy. They can go anywhere, they can easily move away from the climate change catastrophe. Most people who are working, most people are working people, and they don't have the ability to do that. It sort of makes me think about, you all were talking earlier about the floods that happened in Eastern Kentucky. Was that 2 summers ago now? Yeah. Yes. And the response from so much of the internet when that happened was, well, they should just move. And, it's like this disconnect that not everybody can just pick up and move. Not everybody can afford to move, and people love where they're from. They love their place in the world. But even in the face of that catastrophe, even if they did want to leave, they can't always do that.
Right.
And so it's just it's also just such a terrible thing to say. And it sort of puts the blame on the people themselves, which, lets all these politicians who block climate change measures off the hook, and who we should always be blaming in these situations are legislators who have let it get this bad, and the people who keep putting them in office.
Yeah. That, in terms of the comments on the internet, like I don't think a lot of people understand the sense of place, pride, and belonging of Appalachian folk. I think we have a bigger sense of pride about where we live and wanting to stay there more than a lot of other regions do. That I've been in anyway. Like I lived out of Appalachia for 2 years of my life, but as an adult, and I worked hard getting back here.
Yeah. I am homesick all the time because I don't live in Appalachia anymore. I live in Lexington now, but I also love Lexington. One thing I love about Lexington is that it's a city of expats. It's a city of a lot of Appalachian and rural.
It is. It's where we all came to find. Who
come here for work or for safety,
or to be more free, or to feel like you fit in more, or absolutely. We are expats. I like that a lot better, but I do love Lexington too, very much.
Yeah, I'm really thankful for Lexington and how it has welcomed me, and how it has felt like, such a safe space for me as a gay person, and as a liberal person, honestly. And so, but at the same time, I'm constantly homesick for the topography, for the cadence, for the culture. As much as I love Lexington, the culture is very different, and that's partly why I live here, because it's different. But I also miss a lot of aspects of that culture.
Just 45 minutes south of you is Berea, and come on down.
Listen, Berea is not the 606. I keep telling people Berea is not Appalachia.
Guys,
we can have this debate.
I think there are many different Appalachias, and to me Berea is is in Appalachia. It is not the Appalachia I grew up in.
Right.
But
it's a suburb of Appalachia. Is it Appalachia Light then, Silas? Is that what we're thinking?
We could
I
say
don't know.
Appalachia Light. Like I grew up in Martin County. It's,
It's
it's
complicated.
definitely not the same, but it's still here. Yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, there is no. So I'll ask you this, Silas. Do you think that because the comfort, like the desire to be back, I think that's what it is. It's almost like a yearning in your heart. Like when I smell the mountain air, there's just something about it. Or when you come across the mountain parkway and you see the mountains in the distance, it's just almost breathtaking for some, or you feel safer or home or something. But I wonder how that affects your writing, having these two different now cities and towns and areas, that you do call home. How does that affect your writing? Do you feel more free to more now than you, or talk about that a little bit?
Well, I don't know. I think there's an advantage to being inside the culture, and and then there's an advantage to step outside it as well as an artist. And I think both things have fed me. I think, when you're from a particular culture, it resides in you no matter where you go, and you carry it with you, so you never, James Steele said, that his most famous poem, Heritage, is about, that I cannot leave these prison hills. And so what he's saying there is, even if I leave physically, it's still in me spiritually, so I think all that feeds me. I'm just thankful to have been raised in a really specific culture. I think that it has given me a shortcut as a writer in lots of ways, or as like creating sense of place and storytelling,
yes,
characters, and it's just such a rich. That's the thing that I always think about. When I was growing up, they would say that they'd have to put us on a bus every once in a while and take us to Louisville to get some culture. And the implication was that we didn't have our own culture. And so then you get older and you realize all the rich culture that is there. So it's just interesting, the way that those things can shift in your thinking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I've enjoyed talking to you. That's for sure. Great perspective. And, of course you're a 606er or a mountain folk. So, you're good folk.
But it is so complicated, because on one hand, I think, as much as I love where I'm from and as much as I know the people to be loving, I also sometimes don't feel welcome. And sometimes I don't feel safe. I was just on the lake in Appalachia this weekend, and I was surrounded by lots of boaters who made me feel real unwelcome, because I had a little pride flag. And so I think it hurts me more when that happens at home, because at home I should feel safe and I should feel welcome more than anywhere else. So even though that bigotry exists everywhere, I'm more aware of it when it happens at home.
And it hurts more.
Yeah.
It hurts more because you want to scream, I'm you. Like
right.
I am, no, I get it.
On the other hand, Berea can be such a progressive place, is known as such a progressive place, yet Moorhead has a fairness ordinance. Vico has a fairness ordinance.
Yeah.
Berea won't pass a fairness ordinance. So it's one of the reasons I don't live in Berea anymore. I wanted to live in a place that had a fairness ordinance where I
run for city council. We'll work on that.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. So I just point that out, not to throw shade on Berea. I'm just using this an example of how it's all more complicated. And I think that's the main takeaway that people often don't have about rural places or Appalachia or the South or whatever, is that there's complexity and there's complications there. And that's what I'm always trying to do in my writing, is just shed some light on those complications. I never want it to be thought of in a simple way. I think that it's important to critique a place that you love.
Yeah, I do too. And I think being from that area, it's almost ingrained in you to defend. I
Yeah.
mean, defend, right, and protect. And when, even though I know that coal, I know all the things. When somebody that's not from there says, well, this coal, I instantly, for no reason, right? I'm like, but it comes across like it's a cult, because it is a culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's much harder to get rid of a culture than it is a business or a company or,
Well, it's just like, my brother and I can fight and scrabble, but nobody else better say anything about it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it is complex. It's a complicated relationship that I have with Kentucky. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we appreciate it. I mean, it's been wonderful having you on. I could talk to you about Eastern Kentucky all day, but I'm ready for bed, and I bet you are too.
Listen, I appreciate everything that y'all are doing, and all of this. Any kind of work we can make to affect change is important. So I appreciate y'all.
Thank you very much.
So
we
much.
Appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, Silas House is leaving the building. Oh, that was wonderful. I'm going to have to go back and listen to all that.
Yeah,
too.
that was great. I could have listened to him talk about Eastern Kentucky and all that stuff. It's just fascinating. It's almost like, but Chris, you'll know, if you get people, this is just it. Yes, he gets it. Like just by saying it, absolutely. It's just this complicated thing that people can't get, and you will yearn, and ache for the mountains. But there's nothing for you there. It's complicated. But he was wonderful. Yep.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Absolutely.
All right, so we got one last thing, and I hope y'all are still watching and listening, because we have a call to action. We've got to replace Doug Price. In case you missed last week's big news, our dear friend and board colleague Doug Price is stepping back from his role with Progress Kentucky to actually spend more time with his fantastic family. Who knew? So we need more folks working on Team PK. So we have a couple of things. Join up with Progress Kentucky to turn Kentucky purple. We're going to have a party at West 6th Farm here in Franklin County, just a little bit north of Frankfort. That's going to be Friday, June 28th at 6:30. So come join us, have some beer. They've got great beer. Meet the team and help say goodbye to our phenomenal founding board members, Doug Price and Betty Weaver, who is also sadly stepping down to do some family stuff. So once again, that's 6:30 on Friday, June 28th at the West 6th Farm in Franklin County, just north of Frankfort off Route 127. We do need, and so we also need a few board members to join the team for real. If you are interested in helping engage in Kentucky politics, and if you're watching, you probably are, and you'd like to help manage an endorsement process between now and August and launch a direct voter contact project and support our endorsed candidates in position, we need your help. Please check out our interest form. We're going to be adding it to the chat. I can't read it out because it's got a lot of numbers and letters, but consider raising your hand and joining the Progress Kentucky board to help turn Kentucky purple. And I think that's just about it. Nema, take it away.
All righty. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Invisible Project, the Commonwealth Alliance for Voter Engagement, and are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Heads up, we're taking next week off to celebrate Independence Day, so go on out and fly Lady Liberty High, set off some fireworks, or check out our new drone display, grill some dogs or burgers, and think about how you're going to defend our democracy over the next 132 days. Production of episode 167 was by the amazing Annabel Nagel. Big thanks to Nate Orshan, who wrote and performed our theme songs. Woohoo, Nate! You can find more information and music at natosongs.com. If you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook or YouTube, audio podcasts and our show notes are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you do listen to the pod, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you are listening right now. logo and some graphic content provided by Couchfire Media. More information can be found at couchfiremedia.com. And I think that's it for us, guys.
Nothing one for the history book.